Welcome to ESPN Classics Battle Lines. I'm Rich Eisen. America was in a hurry in 1941. War loomed, and its prospects seemed to urge athletes on to wondrous deeds. Ted Williams batted .406. Joe DiMaggio hit in 56 straight games. Whirlaway won the Triple Crown. And on a night in June, an undersized fighter named Billy Conn, the most dogged sort of underdog, had the mighty Joe Louis on the ropes. It was as good as the sweet science gets.
Conn gets in another shot to the body. He seems to be befuddling the champion in close.
Here was this skinny little kid fighting the invincible man.
Louis is staggered by a left hook. Conn staggers Louis. Louis is railing around and holding on.
Louis always said it was his toughest fight.
A left hook to the body by Conn. A right to the body, a left hook to the jaw. Another right, and Conn is still swinging.
You couldn't help but say, my God, the punches are 10-1. Conn is pelting this man.
A left hook to the body, a right cross to the jaw, and Louis is worried. A left hook, another left hook by Billy Conn.
For 12 and a third rounds, Billy Conn gives one of the great boxing performances in history.
Joe Louis was revered as a god by many fans, yet here he was being hammered and bewildered by a light heavyweight. How could this be? It was unthinkable.
In Joe Louis's day, being the heavyweight champion was a glorious thing. It was the #1 prize in sports. To be a heavyweight champion, you were as big a celebrity as any great movie star like Clark Gable. You were bigger than life.
The heavyweight division was something unique and something special forever in the history of boxing. That was the toughest guy in the world. Joe Louis was an absolute phenomenon. This guy's a giant. There's never been a black athlete in American history can compare with the impact of Joe Louis.
Joe Louis transcended the race and transcended being the heavyweight champion of the world to an individual who gave hope to an entire generation of Americans and many people throughout the world as well.
Louis became heavyweight champion of the world in 1937 when he took the title from James Braddock. But it was not until the following year that Louis captivated the American public when he met up with the man who had beaten him in 1936. That was Max Schmeling, Hitler's very own Superman.
People think that I'm going to the ring gunshot. Why should I go to the ring gunshot when Schmeling is 2 years older and I'm 2 years smarter?
This was America and a black man versus Nazi Germany. The eyes of the world were on Yankee Stadium on the night of June 22, 1938.
And Louis hooks the left to Max's head quickly and shoots over hard right to Max's head.
Louis came out of his corner, gave Schmeling absolutely no chance to practice any of his skills. Went after him with a fusillade and never let him off the ropes.
He hit him with a punch, knocked him against the ropes, and I'd never heard a man scream and holler like Schmeling did. Oh no! Oh no!
That punch broke 2 of Max Schmeling's vertebrae. And at that moment, Schmeling was done. His left arm was useless, his legs wouldn't move him, and Louis just annihilated him.
A left up to the jaw, and Schmeling is down. The fight is over on a technical knockout. Max Schmeling is beaten in 1 round.
The winner and still champion, Joe Louis.
For the first time in the history of the U.S., the national hero was a black man.
Even white folks on the job that would say nigger 50 times a day, that would say boy this and boy that, they would light up when they talked about Joe.
He has this natural dignity. It's that dignity that leads Jimmy Cannon to write his classic line, Joe Louis is a credit to his race, the human race.
After crushing Schmeling in 1 round, Louis wore a cloak of invincibility. For the next 3 years, he destroyed everything placed in front of him. Surely there was no one out there to challenge him. Or was there? What about this Irish kid from Pittsburgh? The stylist with the hands quick as cobras.
Billy was the ultimate boxer. His left hooks
were just different than everybody else's. He had the ability to hit you with a double left hook. Boom, boom, and he'd give you two of them.
He was a flashy fighter. He could outbox heavier hitters, and he could outfight opponents who were his equal in craftsmanship.
Conn was nasty, which helps a fighter. I ran on the road with him one day, and before we started, he picked up a couple of stones and put them in his pockets, and I said, "What are you going to do with those?" He said, "You'll see." We approached this house, and there was a dog on a leash. And as we got to it, Billy stopped long enough to throw a couple of rocks at the dog.
He was in the light heavyweight ranks, probably the fanciest and best boxer that boxing has seen in a long time. And there are very few fighters that really were as clever as he was.
On June 3rd, 1941, it was arranged. Louis would put his title at risk against a light heavyweight who wanted to move up in class for the most basic reason of all. That's where the money was.
My dad was not interested in the light heavyweights because he beat the two top guys and there was no one else for him to fight.
Light heavyweight did not make money. When you see light heavyweight championship fight, you say, well, who's fighting, you know? But when you see heavyweight championship fight, that's a mob.
When you fought someone like Louis, it always meant mega bucks.
Before Conn, there had been light heavyweights who had challenged, and without exception, lost.
Billy Conn was as legitimate a contender for the heavyweight championship as any light heavyweight could be. Light heavyweights did not beat heavyweights.
The fight itself was just a fight between the greatest heavyweight in the world and a brash, tough, young light heavyweight from Pittsburgh.
When Joe Louis fought Billy Conn for the heavyweight championship of the world in June of 1941, it was the 18th time the champ defended his title. What a long, long way he had come from such hardscrabble beginnings.
Joe Louis was born in Alabama. He was a descendant of a slave owner named James Barrow, and his given name was Joseph Louis Barrow. Louis's father was declared insane and wound up in an institution. He was raised by his mother and his stepfather.
Joe's stepfather, Pat Brooks, brought 5 children of his own to the Barrow household, which already had 8 children. In 1926, the family picked up and headed north out of Alabama.
After World War I, hundreds of thousands of African Americans moved up from the southern states to work in the auto plants and all the other industrial plants in the north.
Family moves to Detroit. His mother wanted him to play the violin. He actually took lessons, but most times he would just walk out of the house with his violin case, go to the gymnasium.
The money that he was spending for violin lessons, he started spending it to rent equipment to box, unknown to his parents.
He didn't want his mother to find out he was boxing. Once she did find out he was a boxer and wanted to pursue boxing versus violin lessons, she simply said, be the very best.
At 18, Louis began his amateur career in the Brewster Recreation Center. When it became clear that he was championship material, Joe had won 50 of 54 bouts. He was schooled by his 2 black managers to behave in a way that white America could accept.
Louis came along with this very carefully crafted public image to make him acceptable to the white public.
For almost 25 years after Jack Johnson became heavyweight champion, blacks got no shot at a heavyweight championship.
They knew the public remembered the reign of Jack Johnson, how Johnson had been flamboyant, how Johnson had openly gone around with white women, things which were resented by white America at that time.
Jack Johnson drove the white establishment nuts. He was cocky, he was arrogant, he was everything that would give white America a stroke.
They knew they had to have Louis behave at least publicly, in a very, very different way.
His trainers and managers gave him a written list of things he could and could not do. They were all based on him not replicating the public conduct of Jack Johnson.
No braggadocio, no white women, no taunting, and particularly of white contenders. Go in, take care of your business in a workmanlike fashion, and get out.
He was to operate at all times as a black man with dignity.
He wouldn't even eat watermelon and be photographed eating it, which was his favorite food, for fear it would feed the stereotype.
Joe Louis was not a vocal person, but he understood his role in terms of breaking down the barriers in this country.
Using Johnson as a model of what not to be, Louis developed a persona straight out of the Boy Scout manual. He was kind, considerate, polite, and self-effacing.
You'd knock a guy out and you get on the radio afterwards and say, another lucky night. Nothing lucky about it. He killed the guy.
I had a tough fight and I had a fight, I fought a tough man. And he was a very good fighter.
He understood the impact he was having. He also understood that he was giving hope. When he would walk through the ghettos of this society and people would walk up to him and shake his hand and tell him, "Thank you, champ," those were the things that meant so much to my father.
While Joe Louis championed Black America, there was another fighter who bore the banner of the struggling and the oppressed, of the Irish and the gritty working class. He was boxing's Billy the Kid.
You don't need to be a sanitation engineer.
The man who dared challenge Joe Louis for the heavyweight championship of the world in 1941 was born in Pittsburgh. Billy Conn arrived on October 8, 1917. He was fiercely proud of his hometown, a city that a 19th century journalist described as hell with the lid taken off.
It was a steel town then, of course. Steel mills, laboring people, blue-collar workers. With the mills, you had to change your shirt 2 or 3 times a day if you were wearing a white shirt, because it would be black in a few hours.
The culture in Pittsburgh was not a melting pot at all, but it was a smorgasbord. The Irish were in Greenfield. The Germans were up in Troy Hill. The Polish were on the south side. The Jewish were in Squirrel Hill.
East Liberty was Irish and Italian when Billy Conn was growing up. He lived on Shakespeare Street, and he'd stand on the corner and he'd tell the kids he'd be a professional fighter and he'd be a champion, and they scoffed at that.
In Conn's hometown, you either fought or you watched others fight.
Boxing in Pittsburgh was totally unique. Aside from New York, it was the second most popular boxing city in the United States, and the most popular sport in Pittsburgh by far. It was just a natural for Pittsburgh. A rough town, blue-collar town. Boxing was everything.
You had fights going on 2, 3 times a week, professional cards I'm talking about. The bigger fights were held at a place called Duquesne Garden, which was a converted car barn.
It was one of the best fight towns in the country. Between 1939 and 1941, 5 Pittsburgh fighters were world champions.
The future that Conn's father envisioned for his son was not in the ring, but in a place just as frightening.
When he was at the age of about 13, his dad took him to the steel mills and told him, "This is where you're going to spend the rest of your life, working in one of these steel mills."
My dad said, that scared the hell out of me. And he said, right then, he knew there had to be an easier way to make money. So he loved boxing. That was the one way to get out of the ghetto, and that was one way to be successful and make money. And he figured that out. He knew he could do it.
When Billy was 13, he appeared uninvited at Johnny Ray's gym in East Liberty. Said that he wanted to be a fighter. Johnny said, "Grab that broom and start sweeping. That's the first thing you do."
Johnny Ray was an alcoholic. He said Johnny was always better when he was drunk, when he was teaching me. And he taught Billy how to fight.
Johnny Ray was an ex-lightweight fighter. He told him never to fight as an amateur because he said, the amateurs don't know any more than you do, and you'll never learn from an amateur. He said the only way you'll get better in this sport is to learn from fighters that are better than you.
Without so much as a single amateur tune-up, Billy Conn had his first fight for money in Fairmont, West Virginia. He was 16. He lost.
His purse was $2.50, and after the fight, Ray handed him 4 bits. And Conn said, "Where's the rest of it?" And Ray said, "Well," he said, "you had something to eat, didn't you? And besides, you lost." Billy lost 5 of his first 13 fights. And then he started rolling and hardly ever lost from then on.
First real tough match was against Fritzy Zivik, and that was a local rivalry, and Fritzy was like the top fighter in Pittsburgh, and there were 5,000 people at the fight in the Duquesne Gardens, and there were 3,000 that couldn't get in, and they like had a riot outside because people couldn't get in to see the fight. And my dad won a very close decision.
He asked if he could be paid in $5 bills because it would look like more money to him.
Conn's career accelerated, and in 1937 he beat 4 former world champions. But those fights were in Pittsburgh. He needed a larger stage on which to display his considerable skills and spread his reputation.
You had to make it in New York, and you had to make it in Madison Square Garden in those days. That's the mecca of boxing, and you had to fight there and win there to make it real big.
They matched him against Fred Apostoli in New York in Madison Square Garden, who was practically unbeatable, and they didn't give my dad much of a chance.
Apostoli was a great middleweight champion, and Conn basically shuts him out. And he's got the people like aghast. This is an amazing fighter. Where was this guy?
The fight fans in New York really liked him. He was good looking, he had a real flashy style.
He had that New York kind of thing, you know, that swagger, that knocked this off my shoulder kind of a thing. A genuine tough guy.
In the summer of 1939, the promising young fighter ran into a knockout outside the ring. Her name was Mary Louise Smith. He was 21, she was 15.
My father was an ex-Major League Baseball player, and he was in the sports world. He met Billy and took a liking to him, invited him down to my father's summer home in Ocean City, New Jersey. And that's where I met Billy. He said, "Someday I'm going to marry you." And I looked at him like, "Wow, are you crazy? Who are you?"
When my father found out about it, he didn't bargain on all that. He said, "No, you're not going to marry my daughter."
He just figured I was just a little girl, and Billy was a big sports celebrity, and, you know, it just didn't seem to enter his mind that it would ever turn into be a romance.
Soon after meeting Mary Louise, Conn stepped up to the light heavyweight division, where he promptly took the title away from Emilio Bettina. After 3 successful title defenses, Conn trained his crosshairs on the Brown Bomber.
He said to his manager, "We have to go into the heavyweight division because that's where the money was." Well, it was also where Lewis was.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Miss Park.
A 5.3-liter V8 would be nice. Some leather would.
Lewis had established himself as the heavyweight champion with his victory over Max Schmeling in June of '38. Now come a string of defenses.
At that point, there's nobody who's within a 10-to-1 shot of beating Joe Louis. So we can't do something for him qualitatively, we'll do something quantitatively. And he starts fighting like every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks.
It became known as the Bum of the Month Club because he was now fighting every month. And few, if any, of them gave him any resistance. Meanwhile, there is a light heavyweight champion. Never been knocked out, Billy Conn.
My dad was one guy that they were grooming to fight him because he had the style to beat him. So he abandoned the light heavyweight division. He was interested in beating Joe Louis. My dad had no fear of him at all.
After defeating Gus Lesnovich for his 3rd light heavyweight title defense in June of 1940, Conn decided to go for the most coveted title in sports.
He told Gus Lesnovich in the shower room after their second fight, he said, "Gus, you can have this title if you want it." And he said, "What do you mean, Billy?" He says, "Because I'm relinquishing it tonight."
To get a title shot, you have to beat the top heavyweights, and he beat all of them, every one of them. And he was outweighed by 20, 25 pounds, and he just toyed with them.
Billy Conn was an excellent boxer. Then he started fighting heavyweights, which was kind of his good and bad news, in that he started to feel like a puncher.
He's fighting as a heavyweight and knocking out heavyweights, including Bob Pastor, who went the distance with Joe Louis. Mike Jacobs decided this is a hell of a fight. I'll promote this one.
And so he did. With Carnival Barker fanfare, the contract was signed. Anticipation was instant and sustained.
It was something the public wanted. Mike Jacobs' office really pounded the drums and publicized the fight like crazy.
Conn built up a great crowd of people. The publicity was quite great. The odds were 2-1, 3-1 that Louis would beat him. But the crowd, the people who just loved fighting, those people wanted to see Conn win.
You never expected Joe Louis to lose. You didn't bet against U.S. Steel or Joe Louis.
There were 25 New York boxing writers at the training camp in Pompton Lakes. Out of the 25, 18 picked Louis to win. My father said, "You guys have to be crazy," he said, picking Louis. He says, "I'm not only going to beat him, there's a good chance I'll knock him out."
The weigh-in scales revealed that Conn was giving away a staggering 32 pounds. But promoter Jacobs slyly manipulated those numbers.
At the weigh-in, Louis was 201. My dad was 169. So Mike Jacobs, the promoter, felt that that would scare some people away who hadn't already bought their tickets. They announced the weights at my dad at 174 and Louis at 199.
Despite the enormous weight discrepancy, fight fans streamed into the Polo Grounds, convinced they would see a two-fisted corker of a show.
Hundreds of people from Pittsburgh went to New York for the fight. They had the ham and cabbage special, they called it. Oni McManus, who owned a saloon in downtown Pittsburgh, would charter a train and serve the passengers ham and cabbage on the way.
A Joe Louis fight created a lot of interest, him alone. But now he was up against one of the great boxers of the game. And what is he going to do against one of the great boxers of the game?
The mood before any heavyweight championship fight in those days, anywhere, was very festive. It was like the build-up to the Super Bowl. This was going to be the big event of the year.
Now when you stay 2 nights at Ramada.
Presenting the present world's heavyweight king from Detroit, Michigan, weighing 199.5. He's wearing black trunks, Joe Louis.
People would listen to fights, on the radio. They would have house parties. People would come over, like you have a big pay-per-view event today, or the Super Bowl Sunday.
In those days, if there was a fight like that coming on the radio, we'd gather on one kid's porch all around the radio.
When Joe Louis would fight, you could hear a feather drop, not a pin. Nobody talked. Prostitutes did not work the street. You could go into a bar or a tavern and nobody would be arguing. Everybody would be pinned to the radio.
In the Louis-Conn fight in 1941, that fight was in the Polo Grounds, which meant the Giants were on the road. The Giants happened to be in Pittsburgh at Forbes Field playing the Pirates, and Pittsburgh was Conn's hometown.
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the very capable challenger, Billy Conn.
They stopped the game at the end of the 3rd inning so they could put the broadcast of the fight on a public address system and held the game for 45 minutes till the fight was over.
Before a crowd of 54,000, Louis entered the ring better than a 3-1 favorite. Conn looked like every bit the hesitant, unsure underdog.
When the fight started, I guess Billy must have been nervous. He slipped. He fell down.
Conn is down, but it's not from a punch. He jabbed at Louis and slipped.
And everybody said, oh, we don't want to watch this. This is going to be terrible. He's going to get killed.
My dad, in the first round, looked like he was running for his life. Second round, more of the same thing. You know, then Louis started to hit him with some really good shots, and people were just out. It's only a matter of time. It's just another one of his fights, you know, another bum of the month.
Louis went on the offensive and actually hurt him. He hit him with some good body punches and shook him up. Could have been knocked out in that second round because Louis really came after him.
Louis is in, jabbing a left. He hooks the left to Conn's chin, drives him into the ropes. He's pummeling with rights and lefts. Conn tries to hold on.
Conn won rounds 3 and 4, evening the fight.
A left and a right to the body by Louis, and Conn fights back with a left and a right to the jaw. Another left hook to the jaw by Conn brings the crowd up screaming.
Louis was doing his usual, moving forward step by step and crouching low and looking for short punches. Conn took control of the fight after the first 3 or 4 rounds completely. He used Louis as if Louis was a bull, and from side to side and sliding around and jab, jab, jab.
He felt he was faster than Louis. He could beat him to the punch, and he could move in and move out, and kept trying to keep his left in Louis's face and not slug it out with him, and just beat him to the punch and outbox him. That was his plan.
Louis had trouble with boxers. Conn was just quick and nervy and would throw his punches and either fall in the clinch or get out. Every time Louis wanted a punch, he'd move. He was very, very smart.
In the 5th round, Louis dug brutally into Conn's body, trying to take away the quicker man's legs. And he slashed open 2 cuts on Conn's face as well.
Louis went after him and did catch him with some good punches. He cut him in the right eye. He opened a cut over his nose in that round.
Louis won the 6th round, lost the 7th, and in the 8th, lost his biggest gun.
Louis threw a right uppercut and bruised his wrist very badly on Conn's head, and he didn't have the power then to do any knockout punching, because his knockout punches were in the right hand. After that 7th or 8th round, it became fairly obvious to people watching, well, gee, I think Louis had it.
In the 9th round, he said to Louis, "You're in for a tough fight tonight." And Louis says, "I know it."
In the 10th round, Louis, always the sportsman, was too chivalrous for his own good. Even though he was behind on 2 cards, he could not bring himself to take advantage of an opening.
Hooking a left to Conn's jaw. Conn slips to the canvas once again, and very gentlemanly, Louis doesn't even try to land a blow.
Jack Dempsey or Mike Tyson or a lot of heavyweight champions would have exploited that moment. But Joe Louis instinctively, even though his title is slipping away, takes a step back and lets Billy Conn recover his balance.
After losing the 10th round, Conn came on in a fury in the 11th.
The crowd is really going mad. A left hook to the body by Billy Conn. Louis goes into a clinch and doesn't land a blow. He finally hooks the left to Conn's body. Conn ties him up and rips his own right to Louis's head.
The 11th, actually, he was hitting Louis from all angles. Louis was not retaliating. He was missing.
Conn comes back with a right to the body, another right to the body, and a left hook to the body by Conn. A right to the body, a left hook to the jaw, another right, and Conn is still swinging. And Louis hasn't landed a blow in this flurry. A left hook to the body, a right cross to the jaw, and Louis is worried. A left hook, another left hook by Billy Conn.
The Polo Grounds crowd was transfixed, and across the country, the listeners all but climbed inside their radios.
I can remember the Louis and Conn fight. All the neighbors came over. I remember the tension in the room growing, and a guy knocked over a glass and said, "Don't bother cleaning it up, just shut up."
I stayed at the Waldorf with my aunt and listened to the fight on radio. And my aunt said, "Don't worry," she said, "he's winning, he's winning, he's going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world."
The fight was very close at that point for the heavyweight title. Louis was the champion, Conn the challenger. They got into the 12th round.
A left hook to the body is blocked by the challenger. Louis is staggered by a left hook. Conn staggers Louis. Louis is railing around and holding on. A left hook to the jaw followed by a right cross, and the champion is hurt.
Louis didn't go down, but Conn was now winning the fight.
A left hook to the jaw by Conn goes over the head of Louis. Louis is trying to hold on. Conn is battering him with a left and a right. Louis is dancing around in the center of the ring. Conn hooks 2 left hooks to the jaw. Another left hook to the jaw by Conn finds the mark, and he's wild with a third. Louis is hurt. Make no mistake of that.
It was just unfortunate for Billy Conn that he staggered Louis. He had been winning the fight on points. Now he was not satisfied. Being Irish, he was going to win by a knockout.
When he came back after the 12th round, he held his fist up like this, and he says, I got him.
He goes back to his corner, and he said he's ready to be taken out. And Johnny said, hey, Billy, this is Joe Louis. You don't make mistakes against him.
Johnny Ray pleaded with him. No, don't. He said, stay away from it and box him. You're ahead on points, you'll win. And he said, no, I'm going to knock him out. And Johnny Ray's last words to him were, okay, you're on your own.
Everybody started yelling up at the ringside, stay away from him, Billy, stay away from him. And Billy's just sitting there waiting to go. The people that were for Joe were yelling to him as much. Get him, hang in there, you can get him, you can do it.
There was great concern in the Louis corner between the 12th and the 13th round. Their man had just been rocked, his foot lifted off the ground. It wasn't just Conn pity-patting him anymore. Conn was rocking him. His trainer, Jack Blackburn, was saying, champ, you got to do something. Come on, you got to do something. He's taking it away from him.
And here's round 13, and I wonder if it will be unlucky for either of these two great fighters.
They stood toe-to-toe. My dad threw like an 18-punch combination. It was unbelievable.
With a right and a left to the body, another right and a left to the body, a left hook to the jaw by Conn, a right to the jaw, two more right.
Then my dad got careless. He threw caution to the wind. Louis kept noticing that he was dropping his right hand.
Joe hit him with that right cross. It was unbelievable. And it just stunned him.
A left jab to the jaw and a right cross scored by Joe Louis, and Conn is hurt. As Louis rips the right to the jaw, Conn is staggering, but he won't go down. There's Louis jabbing a left and uppercutting his right to Conn's head. Conn bucks the left hook. He's reeling around the ring. And Conn is down on the right cross to the jaw. He's taking the count. 4, 5, 6, 7. He's on his back. 8, 9. He's getting up at the... Oh, no! The referee says it's all over. The winner by a knockout and still the world's heavyweight champion, Joe Louis.
After the fight, in the dressing room, Jesse Abramson of the New York Herald Trib, pen in hand, pad out, says, Billy, what happened to you? Why'd you go after him in the 13th? You had to fight one. Billy Conn, true to his character, said, what's the sense of being Irish if you can't be stupid?
I guess I had too much to win for tonight, and I tried to knock him out. Otherwise, I'd have won easy.
He cried in the dressing room. He just sat there and stared into space, and he just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe I had to fight one. I could have been world champion. And he got up, took a shower, walked 10 or 12 blocks by himself to where my mother was staying.
He had told me that he would call me right after the fight, so I waited for the call. There was a knock at the door, and it was Billy. There were tears in his eyes, and he said, I tried my best. And I said, it's okay.
Mornings can be hectic, but there's always time for a healthy breakfast. Cream of wheat gives your family calcium they need. Cream of wheat, it just might be the most comforting part of the morning.
Introducing the all-new rotary-powered Mazda RX-8.
Most people will tell you the market opens at 9:30 a.m.
It depends on which market you're talking about.
It's all about the details. The after-hours conference call. Complacency.
Complacency is an investor's worst enemy.
You have to have the will, the ability,
The discipline.
the foresight
to adapt.
I've been with Smith Barney for 27-11 for 18 years.
Because we work in the manner that best suits our clients' needs. Smith Barney.
This is who we are. This is how we earn it.
Raspberry lambic, apple cider, hard lemonade. That whole Garden of Eden debacle. should have taught us one thing. Steer clear of the fruit. If Adam had realized this, why, he'd still be living the high life.
He moved from New York to fight crime in L.A.
So you all squared away for your first day?
But before Rico Amonte can become a cop...
Trainee on deck. Try to keep your food down, deputies.
He must first become a rookie.
I'm your training officer. That's purgatory, lowlife.
Nobody said it would be easy.
You will address me as sir.
Yes, sir.
Danny Nucci and Ernie Hudson.
This ain't near as bad as our neighborhoods in New York.
72 and sunny doesn't make this a safer city, wet spot.
10-8, a new drama premieres ABC Sunday, 8/7 Central.
You're 5 feet nothing, 100 and nothing, and you hung in with the best college football team in the land.
What he lacked in size, he made up for in heart.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
Rudy, see the movie and meet the inspiration behind this Hollywood classic.
You walk in that locker room, you feel the ghost of all the great ones.
We're gonna go inside, we're gonna go outside, we're gonna go, 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 go.
8 p.m. Sunday, October 5th, only on ESPN Classic. The New York Yankees.
It's the #1 sports franchise in anything.
A 2-part Sports Century world premiere starting October 6th. The tradition.
There's no other place that winning is that important and that much fun.
The pressure.
You had to produce. You did before, do it again.
And what it really means to be a Yankee.
Pinstripes give them a sense of immortality. I believe it.
Sports Century, The Yankees. Premieres 8 p.m. October 6th with Part 2 on the 7th. Only on ESPN Classic.
Going into the 13th round, Billy Conn had been ahead on 2 cards and even on the 3rd. So the question hung in the air like steel mill smoke. Had the kid from Pittsburgh been incredibly brave or simply foolish?
If you have a fighter hurt, your instincts are to go after him, not to box. And maybe that was in his mind that he had Lewis hurt. He wanted to go after him and knock him out.
It was fatal to lose your head against somebody like Lewis. As Conn put it, he said, I never knocked out anybody in my life, and I had to try to knock him out.
Lewis may have caught up with him, even if my dad was a little more cautious. You don't know. And I guess he just lost his head. You know, he often said, I forgot who I was in there with.
The question always was, if Conn hadn't gotten his Irish up, as the Irish like to say, why, sure, he'd have licked Lewis. The fact was, Joe just turned it up another notch, and it was more than Billy could go.
The defeat did not dissuade Conn from his matrimonial plans.
Billy Conn KOs Kid Cupid and presents the proof. His bride, the former Mary Louise Smith. Billy Conn's the boy who nearly beat Joe Louis. The newlyweds are guest of promoter Mike Jacobs and would rather not talk about the rumored objections to the marriage coming from Mary's father.
The fight was June the 18th, and we were married July the 1st at a little church in Philadelphia. My father wouldn't accept it. He didn't even speak to me for a long time.
Conn had his gal, and now he yearned for another shot at the man who had gotten away. A rematch with Lewis was scheduled for 1942 as an Army-Navy relief benefit, but Conn ended up in another fight instead.
My father liked to argue. Billy didn't. My father hit Billy. Billy hit him and broke his hand.
That did the fight in, and the $1 Million Gate went out the window because of that altercation with his father-in-law. Then the war really went into full force, and the fighters were barred from fighting each other until it was over.
Conn marched off to war, taking with him that desperate desire for redemption against Lewis.
He had a feeling the war would never end. The war went on and on and on. He just lost the physical edge that he had. His desire was gone after the Lewis fight. I mean, really made him lose the desire to box, I think.
When he came out of the Army, when he was discharged, he wasn't the same. He looked different. Although he was only 28, he was like an old 28. That 4-year layoff hurt him tremendously. So he really had nothing left as a fighter.
With the war finally at an end, the long-awaited Lewis-Conn rematch was set for June 19th, 1946.
The rematch was going to be the greatest fight of all time in people's eyes. It was a fight they waited 4 or 5 years to get. Now they look in the ring, and here's Joe Louis, who is slow and not what he was. And across the ring, they sent a sharp, quick-moving white light heavyweight into the service, and they brought back a fat alderman.
He peaked the night he boxed Louis. The second fight was 5 years later, 1946, and he was all through. He knew it.
Now enjoy Guinness anywhere. Drink authentic Guinness draft straight from the bottle.
Chicago-style deep dish. Yeah, from Chicago. Yeah. But this is Tucson. This is Tucson. How much was that delivery charge?
It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
25 years ago, one man took on a monster.
Deep to left!
Classic Big Ticket, the day Bucky beat Boston.
And I was trying to get him out so bad.
The classic one-game playoff between baseball's most heated rivals.
The two teams really didn't like each other.
Plus a one-show playoff where Bucky faces Torres again.
Do you think it was a cork bat?
The 25th anniversary of the Yankees-Red Sox 78 showdown. Classic Big Ticket, 9 Eastern Thursday on ESPN Classic.
All right, here's the play. Sunday night at 8. Go to ESPN Classic. Stop at the couch, and the best sports movies of all time will be right there.
Real classics with Burt Reynolds.
Where sports and movies collide.
A tale of tradition.
The pinstripes give them a sense of immortality.
And the price for glory.
You had to produce.
The New York Yankees. Sports Century premieres 8 p.m. October 6th. Part 2 on the 7th, only on ESPN.
Come on, guys. Time for bed.
5 more minutes, Mom.
Do you think the family heard anything? Brinks did.
What's happening?
Hello?
This is Chris with Brinks Home Security. Are you okay?
The alarm just went off.
I'm sending help right now.
Thanks.
Brinks Home Security protected this family, and they can help protect yours, too. The Brinks Award-winning Monitoring Center provides a quick link to the proper authorities 24 hours a day. Call Brinks Home Security now and get a free 10-point home security analysis. The Brinks Standard System with keypad installed for just $99, and we'll install a second keypad free. That's a $125 value. You'll always feel safe at home with Brinks Home Security. Brinks Home Security, dedicated to fast response and peace of mind 24 hours a day. Call now. Salts.
As for his strategy against Conn the second time around, Louis responded with one of the most memorable lines in the history of sports. He can run, but he can't hide. Now, fight fans were drooling in anticipation.
The public really demanded it. It was the Super Bowl of Super Bowls then. They were waiting for it for 5 years. They actually were able to get away with charging $100 a ticket for the first time at Yankee Stadium.
Billy was afraid of the moment. The fight had become so big between the two wars that the moment was bigger than he could handle emotionally.
He turned to my grandfather in the dressing room. He said, "Yeah, this is going to be the worst fight you've ever seen."
And I got back to the New York Sun where I worked, and copy desk editor in the sports department said, "Did anybody ask Conn when he first realized he was pitching a no-hitter?"
Probably the worst heavyweight championship fight fought by either of them, if not ever in history. They had nothing. Timing was off. Timing was off less for Louis than for Conn. But for 1941, these two men were at their prime and gave 140% of it.
Though Louis won the rematch with an 8th-round knockout, neither man was able to duplicate what he had been in the first fight. Conn retired in 1948, having won 63 of his 75 fights. Louis would end up beloved, but pitied. What each of them had was one another. linked forever by one memorable night in June of 1941.
Father always made Louis laugh, and he liked to be with him. I know when they both worked together out in Las Vegas, he always would seek him out and want to hang out with him and be with him.
My father was at Caesar's Palace, and Billy Conn went down there to visit with him once, and my father said, "Billy, let me have $100. So Billy gives him $100. He goes to the table. "Billy, I lost it. Give me about $300. So Billy gives him another $300. He comes back, gives another $500. So my father stays away for about half an hour, 45 minutes. He comes back, and Billy sees him walking through the casinos at Caesar's and runs behind the slot machines and says, "Well, tell Joe I've gone. I don't have any more money." So my father says, "Where's Billy?" I said, "Well, he left." He says, "Well, that's too bad. I won $4,000. I want to pay him back." Billy Conn runs around from behind the slot machines and says, "Joe, I'm here. Where's my money?"
Sometimes in sports, you can lose and still emerge a winner. Such was the serendipitous fate of Billy Conn.
It wasn't just another fight. It was like the impossible dream. It was David and Goliath type of thing. And David looked like he won. And that's why people remember it, I think. He had the prize in his hand, and he refused it. He wanted the ultimate victory, and he paid the price.
You can lose a big fight to a great fighter and probably get more out of it than winning a fight over a mediocre fighter. When anybody talks about Billy Conn, it's, oh, he fought Joe Louis. They don't say, well, he was the light heavyweight champion, he was undefeated as champion, and he beat 9 world title holders. No, the Joe Louis fight got him into the Hall of Fame.
To be great in boxing, you must rub up against other greatness, as an Ali did a Frazier and a Foreman. Joe Louis rubbed up against Billy Conn. So while Conn is thought of and defined by this loss, he too rubbed up against greatness, and some of it rubbed off on him.
The fact that he was outweighed by that much, and that still had it in his head that he could knock Louis out by being outgunned and outweighed by 30 pounds, captured the public's imagination, and that will always be remembered by all fight fans.
One night, Conn and Louis appeared at a Union Hall in Pittsburgh. Conn brought the film of their first fight in a shopping bag, and well, there must have been 100 people in the crowd. They all sat down and turned on the projector, and Louis went into a little anteroom. Every couple of rounds, Louis would stick his head out the door and say, "Have we got to the 13th round yet?" 13th came on, and when Conn went down, Louis shouted, "Goodbye, Billy." Then the lights came on, and Conn wasn't in the crowd. Then afterward, I was walking with Conn through the lobby. He had the film in the shopping bag, and he said, "I fought 11 champions 20 times, and here I am walking through a hotel lobby with a shopping bag." He said, "Nobody's ever going to see this film again."
All Billy Conn ever wanted to be was, in his words, heavyweight champion of the world. He came tantalizingly close. He almost reached the end of the 13th round, but could wait no longer. Winning alone was not enough. He wanted a knockout. This was one time when a man's reach shouldn't have exceeded his grasp. For ESPN Classics Battle Lines, I'm Rich Eisen.